All right, it looks like I see the recording is started. Go ahead and open today's meeting. We'll call the meeting to order at 7:32 p.m. on Tuesday, December 16th. Go around the horn quickly and introduce ourselves with our names, a bit of our backgrounds to start off with. My name is Jacob Leffler. I am a deaf individual. I have a black shirt on. I'm a white-skinned gentleman with glasses, brown hair, and I have a bit of a white background behind me. I'll turn it over to Vice Chair Puzio.
Certainly. Good evening. My name is Leslie Puzio. This is how I'm referred to in sign language. I am Vice Chair for the SBSLI, the Sign Language Interpreter Board. I have long hair that is in a ponytail, clear glasses, and I am seated in front of a blue background.
All right, Juliana, if you'd like to go ahead.
Sure. I'm Juliana Opfel. I go by she, Aya for pronouns. Okay. I'm in a black background. I am white presenting, long sleeves, black shirt, curly hair that's back with black glasses and some rings on.
Sue.
I'm Sue Beaver, white female with a black shirt, wearing glasses, blonde hair, and a white background.
Nancy.
I'm Nancy Gaskins, black female, white shirt with a white background. Oh, and I am wearing glasses. And I'm a new board member.
Thank you. And now Jim, if you wouldn't mind. I'm Jim Shevlin, white gentleman with a black shirt on, and I am bald, a bit shiny on top. I have a white background behind me. This is Jacob again. All right. Now, we do have a lot to discuss this evening. And again, to the interpreters, if you need any clarifications, please feel free to come on screen and get our attention to ask for clarifications. I want to make sure that everyone is understand everything that's going on with tonight's proceedings. This is very important for both our deaf.
Jacob, pardon if I interrupt. There was just a message. If we wouldn't mind those folks who have a blurry background turning off that blurry background because it makes it a little bit difficult to see. Nancy, that was directed at you specifically. Thank you.
Is this better?
Should be.
All right, this is Chair Leffler. Thank you for that suggestion. So again, to the interpreters, if you need to interrupt us for any clarifications, we want to make sure that everybody is on the same page, both for those in the interpreting community and the deaf community as well. Now, I do want to clarify for our agenda today, we have had that posted and we have some discussions that we'd like to really go through, but I do need somebody to motion to approve the agenda as posted.
I, Leslie, move to approve the agenda as posted.
Second. I saw
Second.
Juliana seconded. Yes. Any objections? Seeing none, we'll go forward with the vote in support of the agenda as posted on the website. If I could see a show of hands. All right, passing with unanimous consent. Moving on to the past minutes, starting from July to this current month, we have posted those on our website as well. We have had a few special sessions. So again, we want to make sure that we vote for all of the final minutes as they stand and are posted. Has everybody had the opportunity to read those? Any changes to the minutes as they have been written and posted?
No.
All right. So if somebody could make a motion for the 7 minutes of the meeting, 7 meetings minutes.
Motion to approve all of the previous meetings minutes as written since July.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
All right, we have Jim as a second. Any discussion? Seeing no further discussion, we can move forward with the vote for support of the minutes and approval of the motion for the acceptance of minutes as written from July on. All right, that passes with unanimous consent. Moving on to our agenda, we'll start with board updates. This is Jacob. I will provide my report of the chair. Our work has been going on these past months. There's been a lot of changes over the several months, most recently when it comes to regulations and different items involving the board duties. Since September, the board has approved the final regulations as we have written them. And we were then told that the regulations would be on hold. That was from the governor's office because they wanted to set up a working group. And this working group would be discussing different revisions that may be potentially applied to the statute itself. There have been a number of concerns that have been mentioned from the various constituents of the broad community. We do have two representatives from the board on that working group. We have both Leslie and Juliana attending. So I want to thank you both for your additional work representing the board within that working group. Thank you. We'll discuss some updates from the working groups later on in our agenda. We have received a few comments and some feedbacks from the community in regards to the regulations. And you catch that?
Which was posted on the State Board of Sign Language Interpreters website.
So we will be essentially just letting you all know that we, according to the governor's office request, be pausing our work on the regulations. But we still have other work to do that we will continue to proceed with. Some of what we were discussing is going to be related to the funding hardships, the application form. We need to come up with the funding hardships application for licensure. And
Financial hardships.
Financial hardship. Excuse me, interpreter. Thank you. So again,
I was just clarifying a word for the interpreter, funding versus financial.
thank you. Appreciate that, Vice Chair. All right. And then also the board is looking at approving some alternative pathways for licensure. So other criteria that may be utilized. The board wants to continue to move forward with that process so that we can eventually add those to the regulations at a future date once the legislative process is finished. And we will have more on those later. Are there any questions from the board?
No.
Seeing none, we'll move on. For the GODH's updates, Ashla, if you have any updates for us, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, board. Thank you, Chair, and members of the community who are joining us this evening. Tonight, I'm here to share some updates with you from the Governor's Office of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. So the Maryland Advisory Council for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, or the MACDHH, we met recently. Actually, it was about 2 Fridays ago. We continue to provide support to them. Of course, the SBSLI and the working group for the SBSLI, we continue to work with them. This week was their 3rd meeting. Our working group for the deaf, blind, and hard of hearing community, we met internally. We actually have a meeting coming up on December 22nd. And there will be other one-on-one meetings on the 23rd. And of course, from that will come recommendations that will go to the General Assembly. I recently received word that they are able to move forward, but they want to have a conversation with that working group first before they break the news to the community at large. So we are waiting before we share that internal information. We expect information to be coming soon from them, which will then be announced via a town hall and then communicated with the community in regards to their communications and follow-up next steps. That's a summary of all the activity that my office has been involved in addition to our regular activities of study sessions, lunch and learns, ASL club, programming, and our regular community engagement. Of course, all with the goal of making sure that interpreting, which is so valuable to our community, and the shortage in interpreters is addressed, and we continue to grow the amount of interpreters working in Maryland. AI is coming, but we're not there yet, and our goal is to demonstrate how valuable interpreting and interpreters are. We will be talking about the financial hardship application when the agenda circles back to me again.
Thank you. This is Chair Leffler. Board, do we have any questions for the director? I see Leslie, your hand.
Yes, if I may. So for Tanea or for Ursula, I don't know if Tanea is here. Is Tanea here tonight? She was
She's
not
not
available.
available.
Okay. So I'm not sure if you're going to be able to answer. Would you mind providing a rationale or other options for the location for those study groups? I remember maybe 6, 7, 8 months ago, Chair Leffler and myself had asked the two of you to make an attempt to set up those study groups in various locations in the state of Maryland, but it still looks like they are only being hosted at the Laurel Library. So my understanding is that those who were interacting at the study table, those folks who attended, voted on the location. We, of course, are trying to expand throughout the state, working with interpreters in their various geographic locations to help take the lead on the study roundtable sessions. So you should be seeing more locations coming soon as that expands. And we will certainly keep you informed on that. But that is what I know up until this point. They basically voted on the location where they wanted to host those sessions. The Laurel Library location was actually moved to Columbia. They voted to move it to Columbia, so you should see that coming soon. Last week, they did not meet in Laurel. They made that decision to be part of the governor's holiday celebration, that particular event. So we all ended up convening in Annapolis for that day. If I may, this is Leslie speaking. Follow-up question as it relates to that. Who specifically voted to keep the location in Laurel or Columbia? Because that question was never raised to the board. And myself, as an interpreter in the community, I never saw that question brought forth via email or anything. So if it's happening with the group of people who happen to have been in Laurel, you only ask the people who live theoretically in proximity to Laurel. And the board has already requested you to expand the locations. We didn't ask people only in that area. We asked the people who are interested in being part of the study group. So if you had individuals who wanted to participate in the study group, this is specifically who this is for. Those folks who are, their goal is to become certified interpreters and pass the test. We had a list of folks who were interested, okay, and we can certainly talk about this in more detail offline. I mean, again, I don't feel like this should be an offline conversation. I feel that it's important that since community members are here watching, I think it's important that we discuss it in real time. I don't know how the communication occurred with members of the community who are certified. So only people who watched the meeting perhaps or reached out directly to ODHH found out where the study group was happening. I mean, I don't know how it went out to the entirety of the community. That's what I'm trying to find out. How were people informed about the study group? So again, my response is that it went out to the email distribution list, okay, which we always do. It is not private. We send it out via the listserv. However, if you want to continue that conversation, we certainly can talk about it. I don't want to take away from the agenda of this meeting specifically, however.
This is Chair Leffler. Ursula, if I could make a suggestion. To reach more people who may be interested in supporting those getting certification as well as those wanting certification, would you or ODHH be able to reach out to, say, CCBC, Frederick Community College, Gallaudet University programs, et cetera, and let them know that we have these study groups, et cetera? Was that something that you could reach out to them to try to get more people who may be interested in garnering this support? I think you would see more interpreters wanting to become licensed within the state of Maryland and thus certified.
Again, we are in contact with those entities. For example, CCBC, we are in contact with them related to our financial hardship application. They have a program which we are essentially mirroring from their program. So we're certainly not hiding anything from the board. I think it just so happened that we voted on that particular area. And for some reason, we're perseverating on this topic. Gallaudet, we've been in contact with them. They're interested in doing some voluntary interpreting with our office via their internship program. So we are certainly expanding our pool actively.
And then second, oh,
Okay, so I haven't seen any contact from CCBC. I would like to be positive about this because, again, this is relatively new for the office. Okay, I think it is important.
this is Chair Leffler. Ursula, maybe, I don't know, but maybe the two of us, we have discussed it before about expanding the support for interpreters, right? We've had these discussions.
Yes, the plan is in the works.
Okay. Any more comments or questions from the board? Juliana?
Yes, this is Juliana here. I know we've had this conversation in the past as it relates to deaf interpreters and there being any study tables specifically for deaf interpreters, specifically those in the Black and Brown community, those who are specifically deaf interpreters with goals of becoming CDIs. Any talk about expanding that, or are we just focusing on the hearing population? Thank you, Juliana, for your question. Actually, that's part of that group. So we have had DI show up at that study table as well, and we are continuing to grow that population of interpreters. That's fantastic. What about those individuals who, are there to support the study group? Do we have deaf interpreters who are certified present? Do we have diverse marginalized communities represented as well? Because it's easy to pick out, and provide tokenism to the deaf community or vice versa, not just to the deaf community, but also to Black and Brown communities. I want to make sure that the representation of this group is diverse and robust and make sure everyone's included. So this is just a question I'm posing. So the rationale behind we wanted to develop these cohorts and these groups is that we want individuals who are certified or provisional, which means partly certified, to help lead some of these study groups. That is the only way we feel to expand the pool of interpreters because we can't meet all at the same place at the same time. So we are trying to vary our locations throughout the state. And if we have individuals who are interested, we let them take the lead in these cases. So we're also offering mentorship. That's another goal. We have a form where observations can be done, again, to provide that extra support. Thank you. I have one clarifying question, if you don't mind. You said, so you're talking about people who are not necessarily certified? Yes, that's people who are qualifying for a provisional license, who would qualify for a provisional license, meaning they've passed the written. Okay, so they're not certified. That's a separate body. Okay. Yes. So we want to make sure that that's distinct. They're not certified. So on the minutes, I want to make sure that that's clarified. We have
Yes.
partially/provisionally licensed, not necessarily certified. I just want to make sure that's documented for the record.
Ms. Jacob, thank you for that clarification. I don't see any other discussions that the board would like to have. So Director DeBerry, thank you for your time and for working on the interpreter licensure ecosystem and expanding that pool of interpreters. We look forward to having more robust discussions and more from you in 2026. Now, next on our, I see Vice Chair Puzio, your hand is raised.
So I know we just had comments from the Governor's Office of Deaf and Hard of Hearing, Ushurla, but I think it's important that the board makes decisions in terms of where support is provided, where meaning location. And again, I have seen absolutely nothing via email, and I am on the listserv, and I have seen absolutely nothing. I'm not sure if anybody else on the board has seen these advertised. I've seen flyers that are shared with us, but I have not seen anything in terms of my own personal email when it comes to communications related to this. And again, I'm trying to remain neutral working at FCC, but it seems that ODHH is reaching out to CCBC only, and that's one of two programs in the state, not the only program. So I feel like we need to push for various locations. And I also know that Tanea has been leading those study groups very often, and she herself is not certified. So I feel that we as a board have the right to make some decisions when it comes to this and not just leave it up to ODHH, because this falls under our auspice and our purview in terms of board requirements. So, and I think it's important for us to have this conversation, whether tonight or another time with Tanea as well, to make sure that we are actively involved and engaged with this study table process. And I don't think, in my opinion, that it's appropriate for this to be a conversation that happens offline.
So we can add that to our agenda for the next board meeting. Again, looking at ways that we can support GODHH in 2026 and throughout that year.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on, our agenda, we have reports. We have 3 reports. We have MDAD, PCRID, and from the working groups. First, with myself, with MDAD as the representative here. There have been no updates from MDAD in regard to licensure, with the exception that they are part of the working group. Our president, Tina Joyner, is within the working group and engaged in those efforts. MDAD has several concerns from some of the comments in regard to licensure being paused. Obviously, there are many within the deaf community that are not thrilled about the idea of that. So we want to see licensure move forward quickly through the processes to ensure interpreter accountability with the work, make sure that that the community is receiving services from qualified individuals who are licensed in the state. So we are looking forward to moving this forward as an entire process to get us to licensure. So that's essentially MDAD's stance on this issue at the time. For PCRID, Juliana, or Jim rather, sorry, pardon the interpreter, Jim. So this is Jim, identified as a PCRID member, but I haven't necessarily had a lot of involvement to date. And really,
Juliana's also involved, so feel free to jump in.
Okay, thank you. So we do have an interim board at the moment with PCRID, and we are looking to make some permanent elections. Working together more on licensure, and I do expect going forward we'll see more of that work. And also looking forward to having a permanent board to support. And this is Chair Leffler. Thank you, appreciate that. Moving on to the working groups, we do have our board representation, Leslie. Vice Chair, if you have anything that you'd like to share from the working groups report out?
Oh, I'm blurry, sorry. So this is Leslie speaking. So to date, we've only had 3 meetings. I think it's important for the record and also for the 3 members who are not, maybe did not watch them. I'm sure they did watch, but also for those community members who weren't able to watch the working groups. I can certainly give the names and my apologies to the interpreters in advance for the fingerspelling. So the coordinator from the governor's office is Miss Laura Gayamfi, Juliana Apfel, Leslie Puzio, myself, Tina Joyner for MDAD, Megan George, who is a deaf individual community member, Tynesha Barrett, who is a deaf community member, Bill Milios, another deaf community member, Jake Whitaker from a health organization, medical health organization, Pamela Ortiz from Judiciary, sorry, that was my, hold on, Mary Pat Fannin, who is from the Superintendent's Office for Education, Maryland Association Board of Educators, We also have Jason Conrad, who is an interpreter coordinator for Frederick Health and Hospital. Dave Okone, who owns a nonprofit, for Gateway Interpreting in Baltimore, Dave Conway. Caitlin Comstock, who is a hearing interpreter community member, who is certified. Betty Kalonimus, who is also a certified hearing interpreter. And then, of course, we have sponsors for the actual statute.
Pardon the interruption, this is Chair Leffler. For the spelling of the name, we have Tiasha Vera.
Vera. Oh, yep. I was reading and thinking of the office list. So, yeah. So, my apologies. Okay, so the schedule is that we will be meeting weekly. And I want to say 2 weeks ago was our first meeting. And the first meeting was primarily introductions. Each individual introduced themselves, who they are, what agency they represented, and ultimately their goal for the working group. We were also, of course, asked to accommodate time because it was set up for 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and that was difficult. And that, of course, is during working hours. And many of us are interpreters and or are deaf consumers, meaning we had to take off work to attend this meeting. So they were willing to actually alternate a 1 o'clock time slot and then every 2 weeks meet at 5:30 to accommodate everybody's schedule, which we were very happy with. Last week, we took the opportunity to basically review what our plans would look like moving forward. There was no substantive discussion. There was feedback about the makeup of the board, it being 6 deaf people. And you can see 14, 15, 16, 17 people total. So that's 11 hearing individuals, and this is for the working group, and maybe 5 hearing interpreters. So we asked for some changes in terms of complement to find folks who this actually impacts this work, but the governor's appointment office said they had already made these decisions. But just to let you know, we did ask. We also met 2 days ago to talk about the issues of consumer choice, and consumer choice focused on in-person interpreters in lieu of VRI. And we had a good discussion. I feel like it was a very good discussion. And we did that with the Maryland Department of Health. And of course, I've been involved in these conversations up until this point. One thing that was attempted last week, Bill Milios specifically asked last week and also asked for clarification about what new things were intended for the law to be changed. Because when it comes to topics, because of all the things that were suggested, for example, consumer choice, licensure requirements, specialization certificates, board members, board meetings, these were all listed as areas of concerns. And those have either been codified in the law or we, the board, have been working to develop regulations to address that. So it seems that there are no new concerns since the original passage of the law. So again, we're trying to parcel out whether, whether they actually want to amend the statute itself by taking what some of the board has developed in the regs and codifying them in law, therefore reducing the actual regs that the board has developed. I mean, the board is supposed to develop the regs and leave the law as is. And the governor's office representatives, they said they're not going to address or modify the regs at all. However, many of the issues that we are supposed to be discussing are actually part of the drafted regulations. So I'm not sure of whether we need to move into closed session to get legal counsel on this or how the governor's office, is able to amend the statute when we look at topics that have already been addressed via regulation. So that's our update. And again, oh, wait, there might be more. Hold on, let me double check. For December 29th, no, let me go back. Sorry, my apologies. So for December 22nd and then 29th, which are the two remaining dates that we were supposed to have conversations, those meetings will be an hour. And they also added the 5th and 12th of January. Those are on hold if we need to further the conversations past the new year. But as of right now, there are only 4 hours left to cover those conversations before legislative session and before the bill needs to be submitted.
Mr. Chair Lepler, thank you, Vice Chair Puzio and Juliana, for your work there and your updates provided to the board. Do appreciate you representing the board, our views and thoughts and considerations that we've had to the working group. Would any of the board like to discuss your thoughts on the working group? Have you had the chance to observe some of the meetings? I did. Nancy or Sue, have you had the chance to look at some of the meetings that have happened so far?
If I
Sue?
may. So this is Sue speaking. I was able to watch one of the meetings, the one that was on Monday. So that was the first time I was able to attend and watch. It was interesting, but honestly, it sounded like a lot of the discussion that they were having were things that the board has already figured out via the
Mhm.
regs. So I was a little bit confused about the purpose and the point of the working group. In addition to that, I want to say it was Bill asked very specifically what the governor's office wanted. He wanted that outlined, and honestly, he didn't get a clear response to his question. So I myself happen to be very curious about what those quote unquote issues are from the governor's office, their perspectives. What is the concerns in the law that they want to see changed? That was still very, very convoluted in terms of the response.
Thank you, Sue. Yes, Vice Chair Puzio? If you wouldn't mind letting some of the other board members comment before I get back to you.
I just wanted to add to Sue for clarification. I'm so
Sure.
sorry. I'm so sorry. So mentioning about what specifically is in the law, we did also, I want to say, was it the meeting last week? Okay. They shared the screen, they put the law up on the screen, and we basically read through the entirety of the statute, looking at those specific areas that they wanted to touch on and discuss. Several of us asked for a highlighted law to show that, and they refused to give us a copy of it. Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. Nancy, I believe I saw your hand was raised.
I haven't read it. Nope.
Oh, you haven't been able to observe any of the meetings yet? Is that what
Nope.
you mean to say? Okay.
Oh.
All right, thank you. Jim, I saw your hand is raised. Yeah, so I was able to make it to the first meeting with the introductions of the group. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it to the previous meeting that happened yesterday. It was very good. I was actually quite proud of the board members and the deaf community who actually stood up and asked for clarifications on the purpose of the working group. I mean, Bill's questions to start off the meeting, asking for clarifications of some of the intentions was absolutely on point. And based on some of the feedback, again, this yesterday's meeting, it seems like the working group hasn't really understood what the board has done to this point. So again, what is the purpose of the meeting? And I'm wondering if we could provide some feedback to the working group's leadership or to the governor's office on just, again, addressing or allowing the board to maybe with our two representatives, give a little bit of a background of where we currently stand and the decisions that we have made before the proceeding forward with their efforts. So that's just a thought that I would like to consider as a group. So I think there was 2 days ago, there was a meeting. This is Jacob.
Monday. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So again, they were looking specifically on consumer choice and looking to change some of what we've put in the regulations. And there were some comments that there was concerns that they were looking at changing the regulations, or rather, changing the regulations to match what was concerned about when it came to emergencies. Previously we had only 1 hour as allowed, and we realized that again that we needed to be increased to 3 hours due to rural locations, emergency situations, and that's something we put in the regulations. And again, this is if they couldn't find an in-person interpreter, which might be the preference of an individual, they would be able to continue to use VRI services if they were first to ask that person for their approval, if in the instance they couldn't find an in-person interpreter. So that was one concern that was raised. And again, Leslie provided the historical background. I really, truly appreciate her doing that during the working group meeting.
If I may,
Yes, Vice Chair?
and this is Leslie speaking. I'm sorry not to continue on this, but I do want to provide to the board, in addition to that, I did make a request of the governor's office, I think during our second meeting, where they were just talking about the agenda and our planning moving forward. I asked them to provide 10 minutes in the beginning of the meeting just to provide some little context and background and history of what the board has done. Well, first of all, history of how the bill actually became law and that process, and then the development of the regs. And I was told by the governor's office that they did not want to take the time at the beginning of the meeting to do that. They felt that this was a whole new group, and they basically did not want to revisit old information. So I took the time to draft all of their concerns, providing an outline of what the board, what the law was, what the bill was, what town halls have been hosted, so forth and so on, and provided it to the working group. I haven't heard anything in terms of feedback, but Chair Leffler is right. There are a lot of folks that don't have any historical context in terms of what was done to get us to this point. And I think that should be provided because I think it will inform where we go moving forward.
This is Chair Leffler. Any other comments, Juliana? Would you like to add
No.
anything? Okay. Now, Vice Chair Pusia, you mentioned that you wanted to get legal advice, correct? So can we save that until the end? I'd like to finish the other items on our agenda before we transition into any closed session.
Certainly. Do we need to make a motion now, or should we hold that to the end of? Okay.
I believe to the end we can finish our agenda and then go forward with the motion before adjourning. All right, moving down the list. When it comes to financial hardship application form, I did send a copy of that form to the board members. ODHH has provided us, and I would like to call Director DeBerry back to lead the discussion with the board on that matter.
Thank you, Chair Leffler. Okay, as was mentioned earlier, our statute mentions that any applicant for licensure who is experiencing hardship in being able to afford and pay for that licensing fee, ODHH was responsible to work with SBSLI to develop an application of sorts.
This is Chair Leffler. Apologies for interrupting. For the meeting, would you be able to share your screen of the form so that we can have a discussion of the different parts of that form? Just so
Oh, I
we can
thought,
also show the community. And
were
would
you
you
going
like
to
me to do
share?
so? Sure. One moment. Would you like me to share it now?
If you wouldn't mind, that would be great. Go ahead and share that.
All right. Please allow me one moment. I want to make sure everybody can see the form on their screens.
Yes.
Great. Moving down. So first, I'd like for us to read it and then proceed with discussions. And I would also like to remove that because with shared screens, some people are utilizing different devices, be they on a phone, iPad, etc., and often cannot see our discussions when we are sharing screens. So I'd like to give us the time to read through this.
All right, are we providing feedback or just reading?
We can provide feedback.
If I may, Jacob.
Yes.
Jacob, my apologies. This is completely off point. I'm wondering if Diamond can turn via the settings on the chat for the panelists because the interpreters are not able to chat with us right now. It won't work.
And
No,
this is
unfortunately,
Director
that won't
Barron.
work. Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, we're not able to do that via the way the settings are configured.
All right, has everybody had a chance to read the form in its entirety? Seeing all have said yes, I'll remove it from the screen. Is there any discussion in regards to the application forms, thoughts, or feedback that we can provide to ODHH as a board?
If I may.
Juliana?
Yes, this is Juliana here. So two things. The first thing I'd like to mention is the checkboxes in the beginning that identify whether the individual is, for example, Black, Indigenous, BIPOC, so forth and so on. I think BIPOC should be removed and they should all be outlined individually, or let the person self-identify instead of having checkboxes. That would be my suggestion because I feel like it's Black, Indigenous, BIPOC. That's a lot of different things. I think the individual should have the opportunity to self-identify. So that would be one piece of feedback. Next thing is this able to be done in ASL in lieu of just English? Are there two options in terms of filling out this form? So to answer, well, your first question, I actually like that suggestion and I'm certainly open to it. So I appreciate that piece of feedback. As to your second point, with the portal as it's constructed, it does not accept videos. It falls under One Stop. Okay, that's our platform. However, we did have the idea that if an individual wanted to provide their responses in a modality such as ASL, we could have a video conference with that individual to have a one-off conversation, and then they could proceed through the regular process. So that is one option and an avenue. Okay, so we do want to leave those options open for them. As of right now, the one-stop portal is not sophisticated enough for allowing the use of video, unfortunately. Okay, this is Juliana. Another piece of feedback, maybe providing a link, like you have the question and then you provide a link where the question is translated into ASL, like a YouTube link, for example. That might be another option just to make sure that the questions are in the other modality. So that way the individual could click and see what each question means. So we are, of course, all well versed in the bilingual approach, and that's one way to do it, at least a consideration. I don't know if it's a funding issue or if the boards can support in those efforts. That's something we could figure out logistically in terms of making this form as ASL friendly and accessible as possible. We can look into that. I don't know if that's something that board members would be willing to participate in or whether our staff would do it. I've seen that done by other boards that sign as part of how they communicate for announcements and things of that nature. So that's great feedback, and we will take that into consideration as well. Thank you, Juliana.
Yes, as Chair Leffler. Thank you, Juliana. Now, I also do have some feedback myself looking through the form. I do agree with Juliana with the Black, Indigenous, BIPOC. I think we should allow the person to self-identify. I think that's a great suggestion. So I agree with Juliana on that one. And then secondly, I'm wondering if GODHH has established criteria at this point yet for the application. For example, if a person fills out the form and sends it to you, how would GODHH make a determination that one person is to receive that support for financial hardship and another is not? So I'm just wondering what criteria has been developed.
Are you talking about like for screening the applicants? Is that what you're referring to when you're asking?
Yes.
Okay. We're actually going to use our team. Okay, we will bring it to the board, of course, but we have to also confer with the AAG in terms of making sure we know what can and cannot be shared. He was going to look into that further for us. So tonight we are talking about the form specifically, and then hopefully we will have more answers to that specific question at a later date once we've conferred with council.
Understood. Thank you. Board, any other comments? Yes, Vice Chair Puzio.
I'm not sure. I mean, obviously it could be related to budget. Do you happen to know how much money will be allocated for GODHH for financial hardship specifically on an annual basis? So that would be contingent on the number of applicants. The funding will come from that and then be transferred into general funds. And then we will be tasked with using that to support those who are deemed having financial hardship. Okay, so in the event, suppose 200 people apply and that totals $10,000, would that automatically be transferred to cover the cost of all of their fees? Theoretically, it would depend on, again, the individual who applied, which type of license they were applying for example.
This is Chair Leffler, if I may, just to clarify, regards to related to funding. So it will be moved over for the hardship, but I thought we were also using the funding for providing training to interpreters, programs, for interpreters, etc. Is that correct as well?
Yes, that's included as part of that allocation.
Any other comments or thoughts from the board? Yes, Vice Chair Puzio.
So this is Leslie speaking. I'm not sure if I'm following along correctly. So regardless of how many folks apply or what type of licensure they're applying for or how much the total is, the governor's budget office will just disperse those funds to cover the costs, including whatever amount you determine for training. And where will the training incur? Will that take place in GODHH? Will you collaborate with other folks? How do people apply for the training? And will the training application or the request for that be included in these fees? I'm not understanding fully from the budgetary perspective what this process looks like and what this process looks like financially.
This is Chair Leffler. Vice Chair, I do want to clarify that in the law, it does state statute requires that funding being used for the licensing fees for financial hardships for marginalized groups, etc. So what GODHH is working on in this regard is separate. The funding all up round is to support interpreting programs, for meaning workshops and different ways that we can support and grow the field as well as the quality of interpreters within the field. So that's an all-encompassing funding. Is that correct, that everything's from that same pot?
Correct. That is what's outlined in the statute. It doesn't say it comes from the governor's office. It says we already have an allocation of funds from the interpreter licensure fees that will be utilized to this purpose. Okay, this is Leslie speaking. Okay, thank you. That's actually very helpful. Now, your office is already looking into the number of potential interpreters that will apply and the total number of fees that you will collect to then help that offset the financial hardship program, correct? Do you want to continue to talk about the application or do you want to continue to segue into other topics?
This is Chair
I think
Leffler.
this applies to the application.
Yes, Director DeBerry. I guess the question.
Help me understand too, because I don't feel like, we need to stay on topic or we go, no, we're not.
Yeah, we are still on topic.
Okay, because are we going to stay on topic?
Okay.
Okay, so are we just close the discussion or now what are we limited to asking to Jacob? We are talking about the application, yes, the financial hardship application. If we want to talk about budgetary concerns in more detail, that's a completely separate issue. Well, I think that will help us have a better understanding in order to be able to, hold on one second.
Yeah.
Could we one at a time?
Yes. Thank you for
Just
that
asking for
return
some
to
Robert's
decorum.
Rules of Order. Okay.
All right. So more discussion on the application. No other discussion?
Okay. So I guess that's the end of that conversation since, oh, Nate, go ahead.
Nancy, yes?
So the purpose, again, is to talk about the form.
Just
The
at the
numbers
top
to
of the
see the
form,
purpose.
just add purpose.
So, okay, so adding the number, that's a feedback.
Okay. Adding purpose to the top of the form. That's what you're suggesting to GODHH. Thank you for the feedback. Member Gaskins. All right, next on our agenda is other criteria task force. So we'd like to discuss who from the board should be the quote unquote lead of that task force and who should we look to bring in who may be interested in working that task force. We need to have a board leading that group and the discussions of the task force when we establish it. And the task force would be then looking at developing what other criteria and what that may look like, in order for an individual to get licensed. So I feel like I'd like to have that discussion starting tonight to get the ball rolling. Any thoughts? Anybody that would be just happy to lead and take charge?
If I may.
Sue.
So this is Sue speaking. So clarification, the task force is for developing other
Mhm.
criteria for licensure? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, are we still talking about the form or are we on to a new subject?
No, we've moved on into our agenda.
Okay, it looked like this was a carryover. We're on a new subject. Okay, thank you.
No worries. Yeah, so we're looking at the agenda item other criteria task force.
Appreciate the clarification.
Yes, we would like to have alternative pathways for licensure. So that's what we want to focus on with this task force, setting up this task force. And we need to, we had previously elected Richie Bryant to lead that working group, but he has resigned from the board. Let's see, that was this past spring. So we, again, we've lost a lot of time with that. So we're asking now who on the board would like to lead the task force as reconstitute. Richie Bryant has not been doing work on that since he resigned. So we are basically starting from scratch here at this point. We've already developed a scope of the
Scope of
work
work.
that will needed for that. So I'm just trying to find out who would be happy to lead that. And we need a board person who would be responsible for gathering individuals to have meetings, to develop the regulations for the alternative pathways, and what specifically can a person get a licensure, how they can do that. What qualifies an individual, whether it's a test through BEI, RID, etc. We do have, for those individuals that have test anxiety, maybe they are a skilled interpreter, but they do not have that skill set for test taking. So in that instance, we're looking at developing alternative pathways, and we just need somebody from the board who'd be willing to lead that group. Leslie? Yes,
This is
Vice Chair.
Leslie speaking. Just to add a little bit more description to that, just for the board's awareness, in particular for our new members. When the bill was drafted, we thought, well, the intention was to accept nationally certified, regionally certified, or quote unquote other criteria which we would be developed by the board. That was the language. Now the law says the applicant must have proof of national certification or regional certification and other criteria developed by the board. So that was one of two things that the board voted on. Was it in September? Okay. To send it back to legislation for what's called a technical change. And the change was that word "and" to be changed to an "or." So that's the impetus and where this stems from. And that was the original intention of the bill. I also know that Richie Bryant, did have a list of names of individuals whose names had been submitted, groups of people who were already interested in participating in that work. There were a lot of folks who did express interest: heritage signers, codas, deaf, so forth and so on. So.
Okay. So, any thoughts from the board to the question that stands? Nobody wants to take on the lead of that task force? Vice Chair?
This is Leslie speaking. I think that there could be a co-chair to
Yes.
reduce the number of responsibilities on one individual. And I would also mention Sue has already taken the lead for the education task force. So I don't want to call on her again to be responsible.
I think, yes, for the alternative pathways, we should have both a deaf and a hearing representative from the board, each functioning as a co-chair. So really only Juliana and I are deaf members of the board at this time. So you're in the working group now, Juliana. I'm happy to lead as a co-chair for the task force. Jim, I see your hand is raised. Are you offering?
I'm certainly willing to be involved, yes.
Okay, great. Then it looks like we are in agreement that Jim and I will be meeting soon to discuss the next steps in regards to that task force. So thank you all for your diligent work on
Thank
all of
you.
this topic, and I really look forward to the results that we can provide different ideas regarding alternative pathways to the board for consideration. So Jim, I'll chat with you offline and we'll get a plan in place.
Brilliant.
Yes, Nancy?
I can help as well.
Uh,
Yes, you said support with that.
oh, okay. You mean to support Jim and myself?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think that really takes care of the items on our agenda. I know that Vice Chair has asked to seek legal advice and enter into closed session to do so. So I would need a motion, Vice Chair Puzio.
All right. So I'm trying to get the wording right. I move for the board to move into closed session with our AAG to seek counsel regarding to the working group as it relates to the regs and changes and amendments to the statute.
Do I have a second?
Second by Juliana.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none? Okay. We'll proceed with a vote in support of the motion to enter closed session to get legal advice in regards to the working groups, work regulations versus statutory amendment. All in favor? Passes with unanimous consent. We will now enter in closed session. So we are using webinar now. We will jump over to a link that I sent out to you in email. We'll use that one. The same as we used for our 7:15 meeting. We'll go ahead and jump into that. Once we're done, we'll come back here and we'll be able to adjourn the meeting as needed. And then to the community, please do stay in this webinar and wait for us to return from our executive session. Again, we're just, right, pardon the interpreter, our closed session, and we'll then proceed from there after we come back. Yes, Vice Chair.
Jacob, to clarify, do you want the interpreters to join us in closed session or can they stay in this meeting?
Yes. Oh.
Everybody can sign in the board. So in closed session, meaning we should not need the interpreters to join us, correct?
I mean, that's...
I think we should offer the option to any member of the board. Well, they're asking because they can't chat with us. Does anybody want an interpreter to join us? I would put it out to the board as a whole. Nancy's saying yes. please and thank you.
Okay. So the interpreters will join us in our Zoom room elsewhere.
Anna and Gavin. Gavin, I don't have your email address, but Anna, I will email you the link. And then if you can share it with Gavin, that'd be great.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Wait, hold on.
Okay, now it started. Actually,
All right, great. All right, so we'd like to have somebody make a motion so that we can resume and leave our closed session. Who would be able to make that motion?
I can do it.
Nancy.
I move that we resume open session.
All right, so Nancy, you're moving that we exit our closed session. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Who will be our second?
Second, says Sue.
Second for Sue. All right. All in favor of exiting our closed session, please raise your hands. Passed with unanimous consent. Thank you. Now we'll move forward with the next item on our agenda, which is rather to go back to the working group updates. Now, Leslie and Juliana provided some.
Wait. They need to allow all of the attendees into the meeting.
Oh, no, I think they already did, didn't they?
Oh, okay, they did. Okay.
All right, so now we are moving forward to go back to the agenda item on regards to the working group updates, which again, we had our closed session. We are coming back to follow up on that discussion a little bit in regards to the working groups. Would anybody like to start us off? Who wants to, I guess, open up the discussion? I think, Leslie, you were leading the discussion, so I'd look to you to go ahead and take the lead again.
I feel like I've been dominating the conversation. Okay, this is Leslie speaking. So, we wanted to ask about some concerns that were brought up during the working group meetings. Several individuals in the working group noticed that the deaf community lacked representation, and we wanted clarification on if there could be a push on behalf from the board to that point. In addition to that, we wanted to see what the process would look like for the board in regards to whatever the working group did, their actions, and then what the board had developed in terms of regulations, because there seems to be a significant level of overlap there when it comes to process. So we as the board have several options moving forward. We could write a letter as individuals, each one of us could. We could write a letter on behalf of the board as a whole. And we also could call for one-on-one meetings with the governor's office. In addition to that, we have the AAG doing some research as to whether we as a board can meet together with the governor's office, because we would be discussing the law and possible amendments to the law and not just discussing regulations, meaning we might not have to comply with the Open Meetings Act, the OMA. So Ethan, our AAG, is going to look into that further for us. And if we can't meet as a board in our entirety with them because it would violate the Open Meetings Act, then we would have to make sure that we did not meet in any capacity that would establish a quorum. So for example, 2 of us, because we're a complement of 6, 3 of us couldn't go because that would constitute a quorum. In addition to that, there were some conversations about how to get the community more involved. If the community feels they need some transparency for the working group meetings, they are recorded, even if you can't attend them live. I don't know where they're posted. We have asked for that. Juliana and I have both asked for that and have not gotten any information about where they are posted. I mean, I personally have not asked where they're posted, so to be clear, I can certainly follow up and do that. But we're really encouraging the community, if this is something that you feel strongly about in terms of its impact to the deaf community, if you are the parent of a deaf child, if you are the spouse of a deaf person, if you have any affiliation to the deaf community, or if you are an interpreter and you want to keep the current law as written with the feedback that was given to the board for the regs, then you could also provide a letter to the governor's office. So that's a summary of what we discussed.
This is Chair Leffler. So we'd like to make a motion. No, nothing. A motion for Sue.
Okay, so I, Sue, move that the board as a whole write a letter and send it to the governor's office, the second floor, advocating on our position on the statute as written, our perspective about the law.
Okay, who would like to second?
Second by Juliana.
Okay, any further discussion? I do have a quick question. This is Jacob speaking. Would the board like to send a letter now, or would we prefer to wait until after the working group meetings and then send a letter at the completion of that with all of our concerns? Sue, go ahead.
I would say maybe wait and see what they propose, what comes out of the working group first, and then from there, again, see what their recommendations are, and based on those recommendations, write a letter. That way we can maybe address with some specificity the recommendations that the working group brings forth. You know, whether we should or should not support said recommendations.
Okay, Chair Puzio, I think I saw your hand.
This is Leslie speaking. So I have to disagree.
That's
feel
fine.
like because, how do I say, how the governor's office representatives have said that the working group will vote, that was their language, they will vote on each proposed amendment. And if it passes with majority, it will move forth to the sponsors. I feel that the board could write several letters. You know, first we could write a letter on what the specific topics being discussed via the schedule are and which regs already address those concerns. And then maybe we could do a follow-up after the final vote. I think it's important for us to show now what has already been done. And then also follow up as to why there's a potential impact later on if necessary.
Thoughts, maybe Nancy, Jim, or Juliana? What are your thoughts on our path forward?
This is Juliana. I think I can see both perspectives. So I think we could go ahead and write that letter now and then write a second letter. I don't think it's going to hurt us regardless either way. I think also writing on behalf of the board, also writing letters as individuals if you're comfortable doing that. Because right now, numbers have power, numbers make a difference, in all honesty. So I think if we send letters repeatedly, it garners a little bit more attention.
Thank you. Yes, Jim? This is Jim. I think writing and sending a letter now to the governor's office might be the best because, again, if we wait until it passes, I mean, we're waiting for it being sent to the House of Delegates and for them to vote. I think we need to send a letter to them as well to make sure that they understand our perspective when it comes to the vote of changing the statute. And then I think the letter we can send now is to the governor's office, rather, and see where we can go from there. See what can be done. And Nancy, your thoughts?
I agree. To write a letter now, definitely.
All right, thank you. Leslie, I saw your hand again.
Okay, just to clarify, Jim, I want to make sure that I'm understanding and that we're on the same page. So the vote I'm talking about is the vote that's going to take place within the working group. Okay, the working group members are apparently going to vote on these changes, these potential changes.
And then that would need to be sent to vote at the legislature.
Right. It will be sent to both sponsors, both the Senate sponsor to bring forth to her committee. Okay. She has to be willing to then submit it to committee. And then also the delegate sponsor has to be willing to submit it to her committee.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the committee will hear testimony on both sides. And then the committee chair will move forward with either a vote or it will die there. And then possibly be signed. And then, of course, there's crossover, and then it goes to the full floor. So there's a lot of votes involved.
Yeah, no, and I do agree. And I think where we start now is with the governor's office. But when it goes to the next steps, we also need to be ready to send more letters at each of those intermediate steps. So this is Jacob. We're having a motion on the floor to write a letter based on the scheduled topics as listed. Is that my understanding?
No. Wait, what do you mean scheduled topics? You lost me.
Yeah, so at the past meeting, there was the consumer choice and licensing requirements. So do we want to draft a letter, basically in that regard? And then next week we'll look at the drafting a letter for the next set of topics to the governor's office.
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, is that what we want to do, to have a series of letters based on the topics of the working group, or what? Jim? So I think really having a summary of what the working is doing right now, the summary of topics, but we've already discussed a lot of those as a board. And we need to be able to explain to the governor's office how these issues can be taken care of with the current regulations, as has already been mentioned, and emphasize again, and maybe I'm wrong. Go ahead.
Not go into too much detail, but to talk about what's already been addressed via regulations.
Sure. Sue?
I also want to add that maybe sending a letter to both the senator and delegate who are sponsoring the bill, because those two individuals ultimately decide whether they will bring it forth to committee or whether they won't, and whether the committee will ultimately see it. So maybe reaching out to them. So
sure.
The senator and the delegate and the governor's office. So 3 letters.
Sure. So is there any more discussion we'd like to have on this motion? Seeing none, I think we can move forward with a vote on...
Wait. So to amend, I think we have an amendment. So Sue's motion needs to be amended. Yep.
Yes. Oh, we need to amend it. I missed that. I misunderstood. Okay.
So I move to write letters from the board as a whole on behalf of the board to send to the governor's office, to send to the senator, and to send to the delegate, their offices. And the contents of this letter is to talk about what the board has done thus far, the actions we have taken, and how they relate to the working group topics.
Thank you.
Outlining their perspectives.
Do we have a second? Juliana, did you still want a second?
Sure, I second.
All right. I don't think we need any further discussion. I think we have discussed this in its completeness for us. I think we should move forward with a vote in support of the motion to write letters to the governor's office, the sponsoring delegate, and senator, etc. All in favor? I see it passes with unanimous consent. Thank you. Are there any other discussions? Yes, Vice Chair.
If I may, this is Leslie speaking. Not weekly letters like you mentioned, but the working group, every Friday, I believe, is accepting feedback from the community. So community members, if you are interested in writing a letter or providing feedback about the working group next Monday's topic, for example, and I want to make sure I get the cadence right. So on December 22nd, we're going to continue our discussion about the licensure requirements. We will also start a conversation about the specialized licenses, the board membership, and the board meetings. And reporting requirements. So if any member of the community is interested, or us as board members, if we as individuals are interested in providing feedback on any of those topics, those need to be submitted Friday by 5 o'clock to Hannah and Laura. So that's another thing that we can do individually every week.
Thank you. I think we are done. I don't really think there's any more discussion to. So to that point, I would like to say thank you for your time. I know we've gone a little bit late with the fact that we had to move our board meeting a little bit. So I want to thank every member of the deaf, blind, hard of hearing community, as well as interpreting community. So I want to thank you all for being here, for being patient with us, and also for continuing to watch our meetings. Please feel free with community concerns, clarifications. If you have any requests of such information, please contact the board. We are here to make sure that all of these proceedings are clear to all of you. So thank you for GODH8 for your support as well in this evening and this efforts. I'd like to go ahead and adjourn the meeting at, oh wait, actually before I adjourn, I also want to thank our AG for his legal advice and supporting us as a board as well. So thank you again to AAG Sonistral. I think I've hit everybody. Thank you for all the things and everything. All right. So we'll
Happy
close
holidays,
tonight.
everybody.
Happy holidays. And we're closing our journey our meeting at 9:22 p.m. Eastern. Thank you.